Good evening and welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us for this public hearing tonight. This is a hearing for an EGLE application to construct a new electric substation on Grammar Road, Lenox Township. My name is Ryan Blazik. I'm with EGLE's Environmental Support Division. I'm just going to be helping out by moderating the webinar or the hearing tonight. But before we get too far into it, just have a couple introductory things to go through. This is the agenda for tonight. I'm going to go through the introduction. That's what I'm doing right now. And then the big thing to keep in mind is that there's going to be two parts to this public hearing. There's the first part we're going to start off with is an informational session. A representative for the applicant has an opportunity to present on the project for about 10 minutes. And then we'll go into a question and answer session until around 6:30. So you'll have an opportunity to ask questions. And we'll go through how we're going to do that a little bit later. And then the second part is the way you're going to make an official comment. You'll be able to raise your hand and make a comment on the application at that time. And we'll again go through those instructions when we get to that part. We'll also talk about the other ways you can submit an official comment. Doing it tonight isn't the only way. And then who to contact for further questions. All right, if you haven't attended a public hearing with us before, you'll should know all lines are muted during the hearing, so you'll be able to hear us, but we can't hear you. You can submit a question at any time using the Q&A box in your Zoom toolbar. You'll see that at the bottom of your screen. And then also, just so you're aware, we're recording this hearing and it'll be on our YouTube channel in a few days. So with that, I would like to invite our other two EGLE staff members who are on the line tonight to introduce themselves.
Thanks, Ryan. Good evening, Andy Hartz. I'm the Warren District Office Supervisor. Supervise the unit of the Water Resource Division that oversees construction in Southeast Michigan's wetlands, lakes, streams, and wetlands.
Good evening, I'm Erica Volansky. I am the application processor for this project, and I'm an environmental quality analyst with the Water Resources Division out of the Warren District Office.
All right, thank you both for that introduction. We're going to move right into the public informational session portion tonight, and we're going to find Corinne Rosania, who is the lead environmental scientist for the applicant, and we're going to find her in the audience. Corinne, it looks like you're unmuted on our end, and it looks like you're unmuted yourself. Welcome.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you.
I have your slides here, so if you just want to let me know when to advance them for you, I can do that. And then if you just keep it to around 10 minutes so that we have plenty of time for Q&A, it'll be appreciated.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you for the introduction there. Again, my name is Corinne Rosania, and I'm an environmental scientist with Black & Veatch. Black & Veatch, in coordination with SWCA, prepared and submitted this EGLE application that we're talking about tonight for a proposed Grammar Station on behalf of the project developer, which is DTE. The application was prepared to address project impacts that are associated with wetlands and streams. Particularly, the stream is Harrison Drain in this case. So I'd like to give a brief overview of the project and talk about our application a little bit just to introduce folks to the project. If you could advance the slide. All right, that's just our introduction and the permit or application number to help folks line it up for comments and such. Next slide. All right. DTE is proposing to construct a new 120 40 kV Class D station that will be located between 30 Mile Road and 31 Mile Road, located on Grammar Road in Lenox Township. This is in Macomb County. And if you look to the map on the right side of the screen there, you'll notice the white and red star that's indicating the proposed location, which is roughly 3 miles southwest of Richmond Town Center. The parcel where the station will be located is owned by DTE. The project will also include a 30-foot wide maintenance easement that will run west of that station site out to Harrison Drain. That easement will be part of the site's stormwater management system that was designed for stormwater control. The total estimated land disturbance associated with this development is 8 acres. The site was selected for having favorable size and proximity to infrastructure, such as existing electric transmission lines, to support construction of this proposed station and to enable safe and reliable power delivery. This site also came to the top of the list because it wouldn't require a whole lot of tree removal. A lot of sites that came up during site selection had many trees. And in accordance with DTE's environmental sustainability efforts, site selection without a bunch of tree removal and less sensitive resources was prioritized. Next slide, please. All right, this slide is identifying some of the project features associated with the station. Some permanent features listed at the top there include a fenced enclosure with a gravel pad for the station. Within the station, there'll be foundations for transformers, circuit switches, an equipment control center building, underground electric conduit. There's also proposed a water well and a single occupant restroom. There will be access drives to get into the facility and for some maintenance requirements. There will also be a stormwater management pond, drainage swales, and underground storm sewer piping, including an outlet pipe to Harrison Drain, which I mentioned earlier. There's an easement out to that. Reason being is so that the project can collect, manage, and control any stormwater from the site without having any increase in discharge to adjacent properties. Also listed at the bottom there will be a temporary feature, a half-acre gravel laydown area that will be used for construction equipment during the development process. Once the project is complete, the gravel would be removed and this area would be restored with appropriate vegetation to restore function of the area. Next slide, please. All right. The proposed project is being developed in accordance with several federal, state, and local requirements. One of the federal requirements will be development of a spill prevention control and countermeasures plan. This plan would outline site control and essentially prevention of spills during construction and operation and procedures in case or in the event that a spill does occur, how to take care of it properly. Under state permits there, the reason we're here tonight to talk about the Part 301 and 303 individual permit that addresses wetland and stream impacts. It also includes a floodplain review under Part 31. Next is the EGLE authorization. Oh, I'm sorry. Can you go back one? The EGLE notice of construction for coverage under the construction general stormwater permit that's associated with the land disturbance activity. And then the third section there is about local permitting. From Macomb County, we'd be receiving a soil erosion sedimentation control permit, a drain permit, a commercial driveway permit, sewer and well permits, and then also the project will be subject to an engineering review as well as a building permit from Lenox Township. Many of these permits have routine compliance monitoring inspections that will ensure compliance with the approved plans and these list of permits throughout the life of the project. Next. DTE conducted several studies to support project development and those permits that I listed on the previous page. 3 studies included a wetland delineation to identify jurisdictional waters, a habitat assessment to identify protected species, and a cultural resources desktop survey. Next. All right. Since today we're focusing on wetland or regulated water impacts, I summarized the results on the top there of the wetland delineation, as well as below a little discussion about the habitat assessment, since that's closely tied to water resources. The wetland delineation was conducted in accordance with U.S. Army Corps of Engineers guidelines. That means that wetlands were identified based on 3 key criteria, that being soil, hydrology, and vegetation. If you look to the image on the right there, you'll see that green shaded box. That was a approximately 4.4 acre emergent wetland that was identified in or near the project site, as well as the kind of a smaller purple box off to the left there, running along Harrison Drain, is a forested wetland that was identified. If you see the red polygon, the red outline there, that is our project area. Off to the right, I've identified where Grammar Station will sit in relation to those wetlands. And you can see that there's a little bit of overlap over that red line and the green and purple shaded areas. And that's what this application is about, calculating those impacts and how we plan to mitigate those. Let's see. And the next section there, habitat assessment. At the same time that the delineation for wetlands occurred, a habitat assessment was performed. The results of that assessment, there was no critical habitat on site for state or federal threatened or endangered species. However, it was determined that there's potential for migratory birds and bats to be in the area. So through design and construction planning, it was determined that the project could avoid adverse impacts to those particular species. So what we did is we used the windows of, say, bats that would be roosting in the area during summer months, or birds that would be migrating and nesting in the area during summer months. We used those schedules when we were putting together the schedule for tree clearing and site preparation activities to minimize impact to those species as much as possible. I'll talk a little bit more as we go through here. But essentially, when we first were starting this project, we had a much bigger survey window. And we identified that there was that large green parcel or that large green wetland area. And what we did is we went back to our design and we reevaluated how we could shift the design around to minimize our impact to that wetland as best as possible. And we'll talk about that a little bit next. Next slide. Just to bring a little context to the project for folks that are familiar with the area, on the left side here, that's an image of the emergent wetland, that green shaded area that will be located close to the footprint of the substation. And then on the right side there, that's an image next to Harrison Drain of the forested wetland area. Next. All right, so in this slide, kind of a synthesis of everything I was talking about, our summary of our station features and where those wetlands are shown. To orient yourself on this image, I'm sorry I flipped it around sideways on you, but at the top of the screen here is where Harrison Drain would run, left to right. Then on the bottom is where Grammar Road is located. So north is off to the right side of the screen here. You can see the station features down in the lower portion, and then the wetland areas that were identified are outlined in that blue hashed area with a gray shaded region. The red hashed area is showing where the project impacts are proposed, and that's what this application is discussing. So there's 1.93 acres of that red hashed area of wetland that would be impacted. 1.81 acres of that is at the station site, the emergent wetland, which is mostly associated with the stormwater pond, that big kind of rectangle in the middle there, the red hashed area. And then there's a small amount, 0.12 acres of forested wetland up to the top of your screen there, the red hashed area next to the Harrison Drain. As I mentioned earlier, during construction, there'll be a half-acre laydown area. That's temporary impact, highlighted kind of in that yellow-orange box in the very center. And so recall, it's a temporary impact. It will be restored back to the original function once construction is complete. And there's also 8 linear feet in this application for construction of the stormwater outlet at Harrison Drain. And recall, that's going to be part of our stormwater management system to make sure that any stormwater from the site is properly managed and collected and distributed out at the outlet there. All right, next slide. I'm being mindful of time here. Wrap up with some of our mitigation measures. As we talked about, when we did those studies initially, the wetland studies, the habitat studies, we took that back and used it to inform our design and our construction planning. The goal overall was to avoid impacts to these sensitive resources as best as possible. The project also plans to implement best management practices to minimize those impacts. Things like I mentioned, avoiding tree trimming or clearing during that bat roosting period, which is largely spring into summer. Avoiding initiating work during the nesting periods for migratory birds. That's that May to August window, again, kind of a summer period. Plans to implement and maintain erosion and sediment control devices. This will be part of our compliance with the Macomb County SCSC permit, as well as providing construction contractor education, largely on what species and what resources are in the area to avoid and minimize impact. The project will also purchase wetland mitigation credits in the amount of 2.96 acres to mitigate those impacts that we tried to minimize but are unavoidable in the design. So I think that's it, and I thank you for your time.
All right. Thank you, Corinne. All right, at this point, we're going to move into kind of the question and answer session. You can ask a question one of two ways. You can submit your question using that Q&A box that we talked about before that you should see at the bottom of your screen. You should also see a raised hand icon at the bottom of your screen. So you can click that. That'll raise your hand in Zoom. And then what we'll do is we'll unmute you. You can ask your question at that time. Or if we have any phone-in callers who are calling in by phone, you can type #2 on your receiver. And what that'll do is it'll raise your hand in Zoom, and then we will unmute you, call the last 4 digits of your number, and then you can unmute yourself and ask your question. So with that, are there any questions that we have tonight? I'll kind of go back and forth if we get any questions in between the Q&A box. And then we do have our panelists, Erica, Andy, and Corinne, to help answer any of those questions you may have. And so again, you can do Q&A box or raise your hand. If we don't end up having any questions, I'll give it a few minutes here. What we'll end up doing is going on to the next part of the hearing, which is where you'll actually be making a statement for the record on this project. So right now we're specifically looking for questions since this is a question and answer session. And I do have a couple questions that just came in. So the first question, has a study of the water table and impact on our wells been done as part of this analysis? I don't know, Erica or Andy, if you can answer that, or if you need to.
Yeah, sure.
Right.
We do not we don't do a very thorough groundwater or hydrologic analysis as part of this. No, we do. I do take these comments into consideration though when we are reviewing the application.
All right, thank you for that question. Thanks, Erica. And the question is credits, ? How is that determined?
The credits, this is written into our rules. There are specific mitigation ratios depending on the type of wetland that's being impacted. Corinne did show it in her slide, but they are proposing to impact emergent wetlands, which have a wetland credit ratio of 1 to 1.5. So for every 1 acre that is proposed to be impacted, they need to buy 1.5 credits from a wetland mitigation bank. And then forested wetland impacts have a ratio of 1 to 2. So for every 1 acre that is proposed to be impacted, 2 acres of credits need to be purchased from the bank.
All right, thank you. Will adjacent properties north and south of this project have access to the this drainage storage pond on the proposed site? I might need to read that again. Will adjacent properties north and south of the project have access to this drain storage pond on the proposed site? I think there's a extra two drain in there. Do you want me to read it again, or?
I can take that maybe if you want.
Okay.
Yeah,
Um,
thank you.
Yeah, so the stormwater management pond was designed and engineered to take stormwater associated with the station that's being constructed, so post-construction stormwater. The drainage swales and piping system are designed to direct the water from the station into that sedimentation basin so that, you know, the stormwater can settle out and then it will discharge underground through a drain or a pipe out to Harrison Drain at that outlet. The stormwater pond itself will be within a fenced enclosure that is on the DTE property. And then the underground drain that's leaving from that basin out to Harrison Drain, that's underground and it will go to an outlet right at the Harrison Drain, which obviously we don't own. It's within the Macomb County drain easement at the outlet, if that helps answer the question.
All right. I think that helped. Thanks, Corinne. Next question. I see trees on plans on the north side. Is that going to happen? And I can change the slide if you want. I'm not sure which.
It might help to go back to maybe the second to last slide.
Second.
That one.
Yeah.
Yes. So I sort of alluded to the fact that after our wetland delineation, we learned that there was 4.5 acres of wetland in our proposed project area. So what we did was we actually evaluated our design layout and we shifted our station closer to Grammar Road. So that we could we cut our impacts down from about 4.4 acres to just about the 1.8 acres. So while it minimized the impact to the wetlands, it brought kind of the visual aspect of the substation to Grammar Road, as well as neighboring structures. So in talking with Lenox Township, we designed in, as you can see, those trees there, is to put in a landscape buffer to mitigate those visual impacts. So yes, that is part of the design.
All right, thank you. Have there been any studies done on the impact of sound coming from the substation on the native wildlife / migratory birds?
Corinne, can you answer that? I think you kind of discussed it in your BMPs that you're going to implement where you'll be not working during a certain window. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. So the way you generally, instead of doing, you know, a sound or a noise study about different receptors, which you often do if you have a hospital or a school or something like that, in this case, the way it's mitigated is just as Erica reiterated there. You identify what species have potential to be in the area based on the habitat that's there. So we identified the potential for 2 species of protected bat that have roosting periods. So, right, they come out of their hibernacula, out of their caves in the springtime, and they go to roost in the trees and things that might be in the vicinity of this project. So you're right, sound of construction could definitely impact those species. So what you do is you establish a time of year restriction. So the time of year restriction is April 1st through September 30th, that window where they're probably in there roosting. And so when we put the schedule together for starting construction and doing construction, what you do is avoid tree clearing or activities during that time period. And likewise, we had at least 1 migratory bird that could come in and utilize habitat in the area. So their nesting period to come in and establish those nests would start in May. So you wouldn't want to come in and start construction or land clearing in May when they might be doing that activity. And so that was built in. That's how you kind of handle the noise or impact from construction sounds, is through those time of year restrictions that we're implementing.
Yes, and those time of year restrictions are kind of put forward by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. So.
And then it looks like there's kind of an addition to that question. Also, the electromagnetic impact, EM. Not asking about construction, but about sound from day-to-day operation. So it's kind of an addition and follow-up, I think, to that last question on sound. Any
I
thought?
don't think EGLE does not review for day-to-day sound impact once construction is finished or during construction at all. That's not what this department regulates. We regulate impacts to the wetlands themselves and the inland lakes and streams and the floodplain in this instance as well.
All right, thank you. Is project approval contingent on the submitted design, transmittal, and engineering specifications meeting state and township ordinances? Question mark. The Lenox Township review for approval or pre-approval the design as depicted in the project proposal submitted to EGLE. So the first part is project approval contingent upon design, transmittal, and engineering specifications meeting state and township ordinances. And then has Lenox, and the second part is, has Lenox Township been reviewed for approval or pre-approval, the design is depicted as proposed and submitted to EGLE. So I guess have they both been reviewed, and is it contingent upon meeting state and township ordinances?
I believe the applicant has talked to Lenox Township. It sounds like that's happened when you were moving the substation closer to the road, right?
Correct.
Right. So I know usually these kind of can run at the same time. I don't know the township specific ordinances or anything like that, but yeah, we do review for compliance under Part 301 and Part 303 of the Natural Resources and Environmental Protection Act. That's Act 451 of 1994, and those are the state rules that we go under, state and federal rules that we follow.
Right. So if I'm following, hopefully I'm speaking to the commenter asked the question. The permit that we're discussing tonight is not contingent upon Lenox Township approval. This is only under authorization of, Part 301 for wetlands and our stream impacts. Separately, as I listed on one of our slides, the project is pursuing, a whole list of other permits from federal, state, and local entities, one of which I listed is an engineering review with Lenox Township and building permit process that will go through and making sure that the project is developed in accordance with their ordinances and requirements. So while it's not contingent on this permit, it is contingent on progress of the project, right, being constructed and implemented, and will be handled in a separate venue.
Okay, thank you. And then the next question is, the project dependent on Lenox Township digging out the Grammar Road and 30 Mile Road culverts for additional drainage to the pond east of Haven Ridge and south of 30 Mile?
I'm unaware what Lenox Township may choose to do. I can speak to the project will be developing an access driveway off of Grammar Road. Therefore, we will be developing a commercial drive permit application so that those plans that are developed in accordance with Macomb County's requirements will be developed and submitted and reviewed and approved. So.
All right, thank you. All right, so it's 6:30 right now. I've got another question in here. This might be the last one. How will this project be disguised to eliminate the horrible look it will add to the properties closest to the substation? Not only from 30 Mile, but also properties to north and south properties.
That's a little bit outside the discussion point here, but I'd like to try to answer, as we talked about before, shown on this illustration. We're working with Lenox Township for appropriate landscaping buffer requirements to meet those needs for visual impact.
All right, and then this is the final question I have in here, so we'll end with this. It says Lenox, and I'm not sure what they're referring to, but it says Lenox says they have no jurisdiction over this, and then so who does? I'm not sure what they're referring to specifically. It might have been a question before.
Yes,
That's, sorry, go ahead, Erica.
sorry, I was gonna say, I got Lenox Township probably doesn't have any jurisdiction over the resource impacts that EGLE is reviewing. Maybe that's what you're referring to. And that is true. We are the main reviewing entity for impacts to these resources.
All right. All right. Thank you. All right. We're past 6:30, so it's time in the evening to move on to the next part. And we're going to move on to the actual hearing part. But before we do that, I'm also going to go through the other ways to submit an official comment tonight in case you don't want to make a statement tonight for the record. You can do it through the MiEnviro through submission HPN NRH8 G3X4C. And you'll see the link there. That link was also put in the chat for you. You can also do that by mail to Erica Valansky. And I'm going to read this out loud in case we have any phone and callers. To EGLE Water Resources Division, 2770 Donald Court. That's DONALD Court. And that's Warren, Michigan, 48092. And the comment period after this public hearing will be open for 10 days, which is May 14th. All right, now we're going to go to the hearing portion. I'd like to invite Erica as the hearings officer to read the opening statement.
All right. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our special edition Star Wars Day public hearing. My name is Erica Valansky, and I am the district representative in the Water Resources Division of the Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy. I will be serving as the hearing officer for this public hearing on EGLE submission number HPN NRH8 G3X4C. With me tonight is also Andrew Hartz. He's my district supervisor of the Water Resources Unit at the Warren District Office. So to describe how this is going to work, I will begin with some background information about why we are here. I will then describe the purpose of the hearing and how your comments will be used. Following that, I will outline the procedures under which we will take your comments and then describe what will happen after tonight's hearing. It will then be time for you to provide comments, and we will spend the majority of our time tonight listening to those comments. At the end of the hearing, I will read the closing statement. So that's the overall agenda. By way of background information, the Water Resources Division is responsible for administering a variety of programs that help protect inland lakes and streams, wetlands, floodplains, sand dunes, and the Great Lakes. These programs regulate certain activities such as dredging or filling a lake, stream, or wetland, constructing a dam, constructing a marina, placing shore protection or constructing docks, and building in a designated critical sand dune area, wetland, or floodplain. The law governing those responsibilities is the Natural Resources and Environmental Protection Act, Act 451 of 1994 as amended. We are here tonight because Valerie Bird, representing DTE, has proposed the following. The construction of a new electric substation permanently impacting a total of 1.93 acres of wetland and 8 linear feet of stream, and temporarily impacting a total of 0.5 acres of wetland. Proposed work would include the following. Excavation of 3,759 cubic yards from an area 0.41 acres in size in emergent wetland to create a fenced stormwater basin area. Placement of 2,118 cubic yards of clean fill material from an upland source in a 0.78 acre area in emergent wetland to berm around the basin and create a fenced pad for the proposed substation. Work also includes grading of the land west and north of the basin, permanently impacting 0.32 acres of emergent wetland. There will be installation of an 18-inch concrete pipe in 0.29 acres of emergent wetland with an outfall structure. pardon me, I think that's supposed to be forested wetland with an outfall structure in 0.12 acres of forested wetland along 8 linear feet of the Harrison Drain. Placement of 7 cubic yards of fieldstone riprap around the newly constructed outfall structure. And then for the temporary impacts, it would be 0.5 acres of emergent wetlands for construction of a laydown area that will be restored to natural conditions after construction is completed. Permanent wetland impacts are proposed to be mitigated through the purchase of wetland mitigation banking credits. In order for a permit to be granted, EGLE must find that the proposed activities described in the public notice meet criteria set by Part 301 and Part 303 of Act 451. In general, we must consider the effect of the proposed project on the streams and wetlands. When reviewing an application for permit under the provisions of Part 301, Inland Lakes and Streams of Act 451, EGLE is charged to make the following considerations as required by Section 30106 of Part 301. First, the department shall issue a permit if it finds that the structure or project will not adversely affect the public trust or riparian rights. Second, the department shall not grant a permit if the proposed project or structure will unlawfully impair or destroy any of the waters or other natural resources of the state. Also, when reviewing an application for permit under the provisions of Part 303, Wetlands Protection of Act 451, EGLE is charged to make the following indications as required by Section 30311 of Part 303. A permit for an activity listed in Section 30304 shall not be approved unless the department determines that the issuance of a permit is in the public interest, that the permit is necessary to realize the benefits derived from the activity, and that the activity is otherwise lawful. A permit shall not be issued unless it is shown that an unacceptable disruption will not result to the aquatic resources, and a permit shall not be issued unless the applicant also shows either of the following: that the proposed activity is primarily dependent upon being located in the wetland and a feasible or feasible and prudent alternative does not exist. The purpose of tonight's hearing is to give anyone interested in the DTE Electric Grammar Road Substation an opportunity to provide information that EGLE can use in making the decision whether or not to issue a permit. Please recognize that EGLE can only use this information you provide if it relates to the criteria that EGLE must use in making a decision. Some of you may simply want to express your support or opposition to the project. We will be happy to make note of your position, but please understand that EGLE is by law not allowed to base our decision on whether or not there is widespread support or opposition to the project. In a moment, I will outline the procedures we will use for taking your comments. Before doing so, I do want to mention that this notice was supposed to be posted in the Macomb Daily, but through a mistake with the publisher, it was posted in the April 16th, 2023 edition of the Oakland Press. Again, we want to reiterate that that was a mistake. As we discussed at the beginning of the informational session, if you have a comment to provide, raise your hand in the Zoom toolbar. To ensure that the hearing is conducted in a fair manner, we will follow these steps. First, the applicant or their consultant has already had an opportunity to describe the proposed project. Second, we will then call on those who have indicated in their registration that they would like to speak. After that, we will call on all of those that raise their hand in their Zoom toolbar that they would like to make a comment if they haven't already been called upon. As a reminder, if you are participating in this hearing via telephone only, you can hit #2 to raise your hand so that you can indicate to us that you would like to make a comment. You can also submit your comments to EGLE via MiEnviro as provided in the link in the comments and in the public hearing announcement, email, or US mail. When all the comments have been completed, we will ask if anyone else would like to make a statement. When your name is called, your microphone will be unmuted by our moderator. As you begin your comments, please state your name and any group or association you may represent. Each person will be given 4 minutes to make their comments. We will indicate to you when you have a minute left. Please begin wrapping up your comments and end within the allotted time. If need be, we will indicate when your time has ended. I ask that we all be courteous and respectful to one another tonight. Please also recognize that EGLE staff is here tonight to provide a fair opportunity for you to express your comments on the proposed project and to listen to those comments. This hearing is being recorded and your comments will be a part of the information EGLE will consider in making its decision on whether or not to issue a permit on the proposed project. The public comment period for this public hearing is open for 10 days from the date of this hearing, ending on May 14th, 2023. Additional information and comments submitted in writing during the 10-day public comment period will also be considered in EGLE's decision. Following the close of the public comment period, EGLE will make a decision to either issue a permit for the project as proposed or with modifications, or send a letter of denial. You may find out what the decision is by checking the EGLE MiEnviro Portal website and searching for the application number, which is again HPN NRH8 G3X4C. Thank you so much for your attention. We will begin calling the names of those who have indicated that they would like to make a statement.
All right, thank you, Erica. Just want to reiterate a couple things. Yeah, we'll start off with the list of people who indicated during registration that they wanted to make a comment. I've listed 3 people. We'll go through them first. And then after that, we'll go through other people who would like to make a comment. Anyone else on the line, you just need to raise your hand in Zoom. You should see a raised hand icon at the bottom of your screen to be able to raise your hand in Zoom. If you're on the phone, you can select #2. Everyone will have an opportunity to make a comment. There'll be 1 comment per person. If there's more than 1 person on the line that would like to make a comment when it's your turn, please just let me know that, and then they'll be able to make their comment. So with that, also just as a reminder, you'll have 4 minutes. I'll give you a 1-minute heads up when you're nearing the end of your time. All right, so with that, we're going to start with our first name, Lee McQuinn. We're going to find you and unmute you, and then you'll be able to unmute yourself. And then after Lee is going to be Thomas DiCarlo is up next after Lee. So Lee, I'm going to find you here. It looks like you're unmuted. You can begin your comment when you're ready.
Hello, thank you. Yeah, my name is Lee McQuinn. I am the homeowner of 65793 Grammar Road, which is immediately to the north of the project proposal. I have previously submitted a detailed public comment, so the bulk of my commentary is contained within that, but I'd like to provide some additional comment. The response that I got from the previous comment wasn't exactly satisfactory to me. The project proposal is in violation of multiple zoning ordinances. The ordinances explicitly state that all buildings and equipment shall be set back at least 100 feet from all adjoining property lines, which this only leaves a usable width of 130 feet, given the property is only 330 feet wide. This is not at all consistent with the drawings. In addition to this, all equipment must be completely enclosed within a building unless the setback and screening guidelines specified are followed. A minimum 25-foot landscape green belt shall be provided around the entire perimeter of the utility building site. This is also not included in the drawings. That further reduces the usable width. And this also doesn't include the width required by drainage swales and fences. So according to my math, this would result in a usable pad width of only around 50 feet in the center of the property. So an application for approval is a contractual agreement. This agreement should absolutely require a good faith design transmittal in full compliance with all known laws and ordinances. This is in stark contrast to the response I received to my previously provided public comments. As the design is knowingly not compliant with the ordinances, I believe the application is not valid. When the project can submit a compliant design, the application process can be reevaluated for the actual impacts relevant to this quorum. Until then, we really cannot agree on anything. The design has to change. And we will hold Lenox Township accountable for the ordinances that are clearly stated. An additional comment beyond the ordinances, the Harrison Drain and floodplain areas along 30 Mile Road and Bates are frequently beyond capacity. Bates Road frequently floods completely over the road and also washes out the residential driveways along Bates Road. 20+ acres of the adjacent fields are frequently underwater. I have witnessed this happening multiple times per year.
You have about 1
It's-
minute left, Lee.
Thank you. So before any additional runoff can be approved, the infrastructure in these key areas really should require a significant upgrade. Okay, so again, those comments are in addition to what I provided previously. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for your comment. All right, the next person is Thomas DiCarlo. And then after Thomas is Larry Rakowski. So Thomas, looks like you're unmuted on our end. Feel free to unmute yourself on your end, and then you can give your statement. You should see a microphone icon at the bottom of your screen. Yep.
There we go. My name is Tom DiCarlo. I am one property south of the proposed site. I will concur pretty much everything that Lee has already stated as far as the ordinances and whatnot. I can vouch, I've been here for 15 years, that this property is very wet. With the additional drainage that they're putting in on 30 Mile Road with the ditches, I do not foresee with the prints that they have, the plans that the DTE has to put in the substation. I do not see how this is going to drain properly, and it will only affect the adjacent properties detrimentally more than what they are affected right now. So I just stand here, and this is my retirement home. I built it to retire here, and now we got this project going in, and I can't grow a garden. I'm not going to be able to have animals due to all the effects from this substation going in. No one's going to want to buy this property due to the fact that all these circumstances that are going to occur from it. So it's going to affect my property my property value, as well as Lee's and everyone else's adjacent to this property. And so I strongly oppose this project going in. That's my comment.
All right, thanks for that comment. All right, it doesn't look like Larry Rakowski is on the line. Larry, if you are on the phone, please raise or hit #2 to raise your hand, and then we will give you an opportunity to make a comment. Or if anybody else is on the phone and would like to make a comment, they can select #2 as well. So those are the 3 names that I had. If anybody else is on the line that would like to make a comment, please raise your hand in Zoom. And it looks like the phone-in caller 3205 has her hand raised. So we're going to give you permission to talk. And it looks like we can hear you. Are you there?
Yes, sir.
All right, we can hear you.
I am.
Begin your comment when you're ready.
Yeah, I think Lee covered the basis pretty thoroughly. Just and I know that, you know, a lot of this has to be sorted out with the county, but the biggest concern I have is capacity to handle additional flow. I think there is an infrastructure problem there in that area with all those drains coming together, and it is actually designed to flood, and now you're adding more flow. So that's all.
All right, thank you. Would you like to leave your name so that we know where the comment's coming from?
No.
Okay. Thank you for that comment.
You're welcome.
All right. All right, looks like we have another phone-in caller. Last 4 digits, 1247. Looks like you're unmuted. Please state your name if you like, and begin when you're ready.
Yes,
Yep, you can begin.
Okay. Hello.
Well, we can hear you.
Yes, all right. My name is Jane Steer. My husband Rick and I are a part of the original homesteaders on Gramer Road. We've been here 33 years. We live in the log home, third house from 30 Mile. And even though all of this doesn't directly affect our property, we're just calling in to say we support our neighbors who this does affect. And that's why we're basically calling and voicing our opinion at the meeting, is that we back what our neighbors say and we sympathize with them. So we would like to go on record, we oppose this project, especially for the wildlife. I think, Rick, do you have anything to say? No, he does not. So that's
All right, thank you for your
our
comment.
comment.
Yep, thanks for making that comment.
Thank you.
All right, next is John Rumschlag. John, you're unmuted on our end. You can begin when you're ready.
All right, can you hear me?
Yep.
All right, this is John Rumschlag. I live at 65690 Gramer Road, which is directly to the west of the proposed substation site. I can't add much to what my neighbors have already said, but just some anecdotal experiences that I've had. I do walk quite a bit, and I walk my normal route is down 30 Mile to Bates and then around. And that area floods quite frequently, especially in the springtime. That's where the Harrison Drain crosses 30 Mile and then kind of runs along Bates. And that area floods all the time, as one of my neighbors said. So I just want to make sure that EGLE takes that into account as far as water handling capacity of the Harrison Drain and what this development will do to add water to that already kind of overloaded situation. So that's it. Wanted to publicly voice opposition to this project. I think this property is much too small for the size of development that they want to build. You know, there's setback requirements when we want to do something as residential property owners. If we want to build a building or anything on our property, we have to obey those setback requirements. And it seems like DTE is just building more or less up to the property line on both sides. So the development is much too large. I think it impacts the property itself and the surrounding properties negatively. So I wanted to voice my public opposition to it. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for your comment, John. All right, is there anybody else on the line who hasn't made a comment yet, who would like to make a comment tonight? If so, yeah, again, just raise your hand in Zoom that you see at the bottom of your screen. And then we'll call on you in turn. Looks like we got both of our phone-in callers, but if there's another phone-in caller that hasn't made a comment, you select #2, and that'll raise your hand in Zoom. And while we're giving it just another second here in case someone wants to make a comment, the next part of this is we'll go through how to make a comment, other ways to make a comment before we wrap up tonight, and then we'll give you some information on who to contact if there's additional questions. All right, I have a hand raised. Jeff Recor. Jeff, we're gonna unmute. Looks like you're unmuted. You can begin when you're ready.
Yeah, thank you, Ryan. I just wanted to add, I think everyone I am 65715 Gramer. I'm one of the properties that's right next to the substation. I think, you know, Lee and my neighbors have all expressed some of the more technical aspects of this. I think the one thing that troubles me is the comment about reasonable alternative and how it was basically shut down because they had to cut down some trees, right? Which was the comment I think Corinne made earlier. You know, based on moving the pad up and the risk assessment that's going to probably need to be done here at some point, and all of the engineering review that has to be done, it seems to me with all the open space that cutting down some trees would be a better alternative than having to impact these properties and the generational wealth and the wetlands and everything else going on here that DTE is destroying. So that's the comment, is I would really like to try and work with DTE and EGLE and others if we can to try and rectify this as best as possible. And if that's not possible, then we will try and fight this any other way that we can at our disposal. That's my comment.
All right, thank you for that comment. Is there anybody else on the line who hasn't spoken yet that would like to make a comment? All right, we'll give it another couple seconds here, and then we'll move on to the next part. All right, I'm still not seeing any raised hands. All right, so Erica, if you'd like to read the closing statement tonight.
Sure thing. Thank you all very much for your comments and cooperation. We do appreciate your interest in the proposed project and that you took the time to be here tonight. As indicated at the beginning of the hearing, you may submit additional written comments for an additional 10 days, which means you have up until May 14th, 2023 to submit written comments. Following the close of the public comment period, we will consider all comments received and make a decision on the proposed project. Just to remind those that may still want to submit, we have some information up here on the screen. There's the link to the direct public hearing event. You can also mail to me. That's Erica Valansky at EGLE Water Resources Division, 27700 Donald Court, Warren, Michigan, 48092. Or you can email me as well. The hearing is now closed. Thank you again, and may the force be with you.
All right, thank you, Erica. All right, and if you have any additional questions after this hearing, have Andy and Erica's contact information up here, and I will read those off. Erica Valansky, and her phone number is 586-601-7985. And her email is Valansky, and that's VOLANSKYE at michigan.gov. And then Andy Hartz, or Andrew Hartz, his phone number is 586-753-3867, or by email at hartza@michigan.gov or hartza@michigan.gov. All right, Andy, do you have any final closing comments for us tonight?
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. I appreciate everybody taking time out of their day today to attend the hearing and give us your comments. It's public input on these projects is important. Obviously, a lot of things were brought up tonight that EGLE does have some oversight on, and some other issues that are obviously important that EGLE does not have oversight on. So I appreciate the informed comments. Everybody, really, I think did a nice job with doing enough research on the project to give us some nice informed comments. So we appreciate that. And that's all I have for tonight, but thank you all. Thanks, Ryan. Thank you, Erica.
Yeah, thank you both, Erica and Andy, and everyone for participating in this process. Final thing I want to close out with, just as a reminder, this was recorded. Closed caption recording will be on our YouTube channel here in a couple days. So with that, I hope you all have a great May the 4th and a good rest of your evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.